I just want to thank the warden of St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, the administration, the teachers, the old boys, and also the fellow Thomians for giving me this awesome opportunity to be able to talk to them today with regard to the first 10 runs in singles. Thank you for giving me this honor, and it was an incredible privilege. Esther Perpetua, Prakash Thevanayagam.
We have with us this afternoon Mr. Prakash Thevanayagam, also known as Sam, but to the Thomians he is known as Prakash. He was a student here after having, he was a student here for some time throughout his school career, I think, yes? He represented the school in athletics. He was a cricketer. And like you, like most of you, he was also a bit of a naughty chap, from what I've heard. But that didn't stop him from going out into the world and achieving great things. And it's about that achievement and about how he achieved and how it can be done even in your lives that he has come to talk to you about today. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Parts Life. From the time he was a youth, he had an entrepreneurial spirit, and after working for many years in the automotive aftermarket for other companies, he reached a high position as Vice President, and then he saw the opportunity to go on his own, to start off on his own. In 2007, he started Parts Life, which is an innovative company focused on providing customized parts and solutions to support the defense, aerospace, heavy-duty and automotive industries. Known for agility, efficiency and affordability, the value created by Parts Life results in life cycle sustainment and service life extension for mission-critical systems. I'm sure he'll explain to you what all this is. The work of Parts Life directly impacts the US taxpayer and the war fighter, saving millions of dollars each year and ensuring that systems are mission ready. Parts Life has quickly become a key industry leader and earned a reputation for excellence and achievement in quality and performance by working closely with its customers to support individual needs. Prakash completed his BSc in marketing at Oral Roberts University. He did a certification in production and inventory management through American Production and Inventory Control Society in 1993. He has a certification in purchasing and supply management through the National Association of Purchasing Management. He has a certificate in supplier development and strategic sourcing from Caltech and various other courses, including SBA Emerging 200 Executive Training Program, Re-engineering the Supply Chain, Lean Principles and Continuous Improvement, and Servant Leadership. His commitment to the warfighter goes beyond the mission of Parts Life, and he is most proud of the commitment he has made to bring manufacturing back to the United States. There's a lot more that I can say, but I'm sure you will learn more about him as he speaks to you. He takes his staff and family and neighbors seriously. He is known for his faith in God and the responsibility that that faith has placed upon him to give back to community. We are very happy to have you with us, Prakash. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. It's our privilege. And I would now like to welcome you to address the boys, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Warden Reverend Billy Moria. I have a lot of my classmates here, teachers, fellow Thomians. It is an incredible honor and a privilege for me to stand here before you today. I think I have to thank Trinitian for making this possible, along with working with the Thomians. I would like to thank Mr. Nihal Gunawardena and also Mr. Mahinda Halangoda, who I know as Gunda and Mahinda or Halang, for having made this opportunity possible. I would like to start off by starting off with a word of prayer. So if you can bow your heads. Heavenly Father, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to be at St. Thomas's College today. I thank you, Lord, for all those students who are listening. I pray that they would realize today that they are your workmanship, created in you to do good works, that you prepared in advance for them to do. I pray, Father, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart will be acceptable to you. I would like to follow up with a 1-minute silence for 3 Thomians that are very dear and near to me. One of them is, especially during this cricket season, Gaidi Alvis. The next one is Dalan Subramaniam, who captains St. Thomas's, and also my dear friend Adrian Gurusingha. So if I can ask you to bow your heads one more time for a minute of silence. You can stand up to do that. Thank you. This week is full of traditions. It's really encouraging for me to see all you young Thomians here at school today, in spite of the week of traditions. So, as we talk about traditions, what are some of the things that we would experience this week? The first one is a cycle parade. I still believe that you still have a cycle parade. I remember, I think it was in 1983 when my brother Suresh played for St. Thomas's. The captain, Kapila Vijayagunawardena, did not have a home in Colombo. His father was a planter, so the cycle parade ended up coming to our house. And I still remember the whole by roads, there was traffic stop, there were Thomians coming through the kitchen, in the bathrooms, all over the place. It was an incredible opportunity not only to be a part of a cycle parade, but to actually experience that parade here. The second one is the hat collection. And Warden talked about the fact that I have a degree in marketing from Oral Roberts University, but I think I learned how to sell during the hat collection, because I came from a modest family. My father was an army officer, so we didn't have a lot of money. So I knew there was a direct relationship between how much money I collected as a hat collection versus how good of a time that I was going to be able to have. So I started to learn very, very, very early in life how to ask for money and how to close a sale. Number 3, I just talked to one of the prefects today. I heard that running on the field is not possible anymore, but I ran on the field often. And in fact, one of the things I had told my wife was, there's a lot of people in America who like to go to Pamplona in Italy to run with the bulls. I had told my wife, the Sri Lankan way of running with the bulls is running on the field during the Royal Thomian. So one of these years, if you see an old pappagai running up and down on the field with 3 young studs, you will know that it is me. I'm not going to do that until it becomes okay to do it again. But just wanted to talk about that. All of the flags and the banners, right? I still remember I started my career as a prep at St. Thomas's Prep. I still remember getting my flag flicked for the first time. And all of the papare bands and, all of that goes with it. So it is all part of, right, not only being a Thomian, but exactly this week. So I really appreciate this opportunity that you're going to give me some of your time and you're going to be somewhat attentive. I remember the scaling of the walls of Ladies College, Bishop's College, HFC, and also at Methodist. I remember especially at HFC we would go down that road so that these girls would be able to throw money at us, money that we needed. The last time I stood on this stage was in 1979. Can anybody guess what actually got me up on stage? Anybody? I don't think anybody even remembers, but I'm going to tell you. In 1979, acupuncture was something that had just started in Sri Lanka. And there was a person who came up, Chavan, I don't know whether you remember, a person who came up and started to talk about acupuncture. And so he stood here and lectured the hall like this for 10 minutes. And you know what's coming next, right? He finished talking. How much can you talk about acupuncture? Guess what he wanted to do? He wanted somebody from the audience to actually come up so that he could demonstrate what acupuncture was all about. The whole hall was deathly silent. Everybody it's like exactly how it is right now. There was nobody moving. And I suddenly realized that somebody needed to represent college. So I decided to come up. And I stood in front of this guy while he poked me with some needles so that he could show the audience exactly what was happening. So I learned from that experience. And I did something to make sure that I would have participation today. Because it took a lot to get people to participate. So I'm going to make sure that there is going to be fantastic participation here. What am I saying to you? At the end of what I'm going to speak, I'm going to ask some questions. The way for you to earn one of those balls is to ask questions. So hopefully, the participation will be better than what I had when I actually had to get up and speak. So that's some pictures, right? That's what this week's going to look like. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Warden talked about the fact that I've always been a Thomian. I went to prep school until I was in grade 9, and I was 14 years old when I moved to St. Thomas's Mount. And I spent 4 years at this school. I actually did some soccer, ran some track, actually played cricket under Hallam, even though I never got to play in the first 11. I was part of the squad, never made it on the first 11 team. Actually played a lot of second 11. In fact, one of the people that I opened the batting with, I didn't open the batting a lot, but I did open the batting in one game with Harpu. The Harpu of the DJ, the pizza guy, the serial entrepreneur. Him and I opened the batting at the small clubs once, many years ago. So when you do talk to him, he will remember that. I cut classes a lot. I spent a lot of time outside the classroom more than in the classroom. I still remember, every year I would come back saying, you know what, this is a new year, I'm going to do this thing right. And you won't believe what happened to me the first day back in a term. I got caned by Mr. Quintin Israel, 4 cuts, really hard in the morning. In the afternoon, I got 3 more cuts from Mr. Manoharan, who was my science teacher. That was not the end of it. I had been smoking at the Liberty Cinema during the school holidays, and there was this prefect called Nigel Hatch. He made sure that he got a piece of me as well. So this is the first day I had gone in thinking, you know what, I'm going to do this thing right. Before the day was over, I had got 3 punishments thrown at me. I also ended up getting suspended from school, got suspended from the under-17 cricket team a couple of times, and this was the kind of pattern while I was at St. Thomas's. Before I get into what I did after leaving school, one of the things that I remember, and it would be remiss of me if I do not talk about it, is the 100 Battle of the Blues. I was at St. Thomas's when the 100 Battle of the Blues was played. My focus was, again, hat collection, number 1, and number 2, ladies, cover your ears, because how many girls I could get in the back seat of my friend's car. That was the focus of the 100th Royal Thomian for me. But like every Thomian, the third day, we were really sweating it. And it took, 2 awesome Thomians, 2 two, actually, I would say, two ordinary Thomians. Because the 100th Royal Thomian was made up of quite a few big names. Guys like Gaidi Alves, Lakmal Isoida, Uchi Vijayasinghe had come back after having passed their O-levels. And so they had real names. Halang was his usual modest self, and CP was, I think, added to the team in the last two matches. And the people who represented, the two players who represented St. Thomas's, were not Tamil, not Sinhalese. They were actually Thomians. And they went out there and made sure that they got their eye in, and not only did they start to defend, but they ended up starting to attack. I still remember Ranjan got so frustrated he called for the new ball, thinking that was going to take care of it. And I still remember, Halang, the faster they bowled at him, and this was people like Ashanta Dimel, Rajiv Vijayasuriya, who I had actually faced before and after. And these were fantastic fast bowlers. So they threw everything at us because they wanted to win the game and go back to Reed Avenue. I think the carnival was on there already for 5 days. It was incredibly a fantastic environment, fantastic atmosphere. So they wanted to win so that they could really party some more. But, there was a superb knock that kept them from being able to do that. Now, why do I bring that up? Because all of us will be called upon at some point in our lives to be able to play that kind of inning for ourselves and for our families. So yes, Halang and CP did that for St. Thomas's. There will be things that happen in life, things that we don't control. When your side is down, when your family needs you, it could be there was a sudden death in the family. It could be there was a loss of a job, or something that you never even imagined as a young 16, 17, 18-year-old boy that's going to be thrown at you. And it's important for you to figure out exactly how is it that you're going to go out and do what you're supposed to do. Hopefully, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that. So there's my picture of me running track. And this is the under-17 cricket team that played Ananda in the final. I actually got to play against Arjuna and Charit. In fact, Arjuna got an 80 odd and Charit got 100. We were almost beaten by innings. There was such a mismatch. Even though it was the final, it was an incredible, Ananda had an incredible team. Quite a few of the Indians ended up going to play for Sri Lanka after that. At 18 years old, my father said to me, stop wasting your time and my money. And I went to work at John Keel's and did some commodity brokering there for 4 years. And after a long time, I started to get good at what I was doing and started to get out of the bad patterns that I'd created at St. Thomas's, and started to find my feet, if you will, so that I could start to, get to adulthood. At 22, I had been praying and asking God to open up an opportunity for me to go to the United States to study. And I ended up going to a small community college in Michigan. And then thereafter, I went to Oral Roberts University to get a degree in marketing. I'm going to bring up something now so that I don't forget. How many of you are thinking about going to the United States to study? Show of hands? A few? So let me throw something at you. Many Sri Lankan students, when they come to the US, they come to brand name universities. Because that's when you go and do your research, when you talk to your parents' friends, when you talk to your parents, they're bringing up all of these big name schools that cost a lot of money. I'm here to talk about stewardship. And part of being a good steward is sometimes being able to choose other options. You don't have to go to a fantastic school and pay $50,000, $60,000 a year in order to be able to get a degree in the US. One of the ways to do that is to go to a community college, a smaller school where more people know you. It's a much more controlled environment, and that is not a bad way to go. in getting ready for this meeting today, I met with the international student advisor for the community college in the town that I live in. I just went on the board of that school, and I wanted to make sure that I had a good understanding of what it would take for a Sri Lankan student to come to the US to study. And so one of the things that I want to offer up is, that is not a bad way to go, because you can go to a community college and do 2 years or 3 years and then transfer to a 4-year school that has a bigger name, that has the college degree attached to it. So it's something that I want to leave with you. You may not necessarily need it today, but it's not a bad way to go. And I worked in industry for 20 years when I graduated out of ORU, and then started Parts Life at the age of 44. In February of this year, Parts Life, we celebrated 10 years as a company, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about it. I'm married with 5 children. I have 3 boys who are 22, 20, and 18, and my girls are 13 and 8. This is a trip that we did to Sri Lanka, and I actually got to show them college while college was out. That's my son, Micah Prakash. He has my middle name, who did a stint at the Air Force and is going to school at a community college right now. And my son, Nick, plays football for Lehigh University, and my youngest son is looking for universities right now, and he plans to play football as well. So we are a very active, very, very active family. Now that I've told you about my journey, I've talked to you about my days in school, I told you a little bit about my family. I want to tell you a little bit about Parts Life and the company that I started. So, that seems like a lot. Let me make it very, very simple. What Parts Life does is, if you had an older car, I'm sure many of you and your parents have much newer cars, but if you had a car that was 15, 20, 25, 30 years old, many of the assets, the weapons in the US, are between 40 and 60 years old, because these are very expensive and they're mission critical. 50, 60-year-old assets, sometimes it's very, very difficult to find parts on them. So in Sri Lanka, if you had a 20-year-old car and you went to the dealership and they didn't have it, what would you do? You would go to Panchakawata and try to buy it new. Most probably the new parts are not available. You would go to the junkyards to find an older part that you can reuse. What Parts Life does is we actually manage that process by going out and seeing whether there are parts in the graveyard, and most often than not, there are no parts available, and we go and reverse engineer that part. And then we actually, once we reverse engineer it, we manufacture it, and our brand promises that we will continue to supply that part for the life of that asset. And so even though the focus is primarily on older parts, the neat thing is that we have won a couple of contracts, and we are now doing some parts on the F-35, which is the Joint Strike Fighter that has just started to come into commission. We have some parts on land systems, the mine resistance and ambush-proof vehicles that the U.S. Army and Marine Corps drive, and also the DDG-1000. Between the F-35 and the DDG-1000, these are 2 of the most powerful air and sea weapons that is known to mankind. And so it's a neat thing that even though our process was actually much more focused on the old stuff, we have also started to win some contracts on the new stuff. And there has been a little bit of a buzz about the 3D printer. And so part of what I wanted to do is, we have started to use 3D print technology as a way to be able to model and to be able to do some foolproofing of our processors. And when I had contacted Halang and asked him whether 3D printing was available and whether it was something that was used, he had told me that there are very few 3D printing capabilities right now in the US. So I decided that this would be a neat thing for us to do. So I had a friend called Adrian Gurusingha. He ran track with me. Ada was an unbelievable athlete an incredible individual, somebody who was extremely kind, courteous. He was also on the edge of stuff. He owned a motorcycle. He was constantly, working on cars. His father, Uncle Emil, owned his own shop. And Ada was all about fiddling. He was always on the edge. Confident young man, good-looking young man. The girls used to go crazy about him when he ran because he had hair, on both sides, and it would bop like that when he ran. And he was somebody. Sujiva Kure was supposed to be here, but Sujiva is a fantastic athlete who ran for Royal, practiced. He was one of these persons who was unbelievably trained and disciplined guys who would train every day. Ada would come to practice late. He would smoke a couple of cigarettes and ended up beating Sujiva in the public schools in the 100. He was somebody that had just a real flair for life. Unfortunately, we lost him early. His mom, Auntie Carol, is here today. I had wanted her to be here, so when I honored Adrian, that she would be able to participate. So, in memory of Adrian Gurusingha, it is my honor and my privilege to be able to gift a 3D printer to STC. When I go back, I've already sourced it, found out exactly what we're going to do. We have to figure out how we're going to ship it here and make sure that it is received properly, and then we got to make sure where it's going to be stored here and stuff like that. One of the things I used to do in the chemistry lab was, because we used to create smoke, it was a good opportunity for me to smoke a cigarette, because Mrs. Sanders, who used to teach chemistry, didn't know whether the smoke was being created by the experiment or whether it was us pulling a fag. But the good news is, having a 3D printer, you're going to have some hands-on experiences in physics and chemistry, because it's got chemistry in it, because you're dealing with a lot of different materials, and also there is some physics involved. It's a cutting-edge technology that is going to be something that is in the future. The printer that I'm going to give you is more than $1,000, and it doesn't matter how much it is, but I'm going to give you kids an assignment. That is, I would love for you to go and do some Google searches and YouTubes to find out a little bit about it, so that I'm sure some of you have already told me that that you know about it, and so it'll do as much as you want it to do. And the neat thing about 3D printing is also called additive manufacturing, because in most cases in manufacturing, when you are actually making something, you are actually making it by taking something away. You're subtracting something. When you're machining something, you're taking material away. Even in sewing in garments, when you're cutting, there is a lot of waste, because you're taking something and you're cutting out what you don't need in order to be able to shape that which you are trying to create. In 3D printing, you're actually adding layer by layer. So basically what it is actually doing is basically printing into like a 3D mode. So it's an incredible technology, and I am hoping that you guys get a lot out of it. I told you a little bit about my upbringing and being at St. Thomas's. I told you about my family. I told you about the kind of work that I do. I also want to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about this word stewardship. It's an idea, or it's a word that has come into my conscious very recently. I believe it's something that God has challenged me to do in talking to audiences, mainly in the US, about stewardship. And so some of what I'm going to talk to you about is stuff that we do. And the Bible says you don't necessarily want your left hand to know what your right hand is doing. But on the other hand, I am here to challenge you. I am here to stretch you so that someday, as you grow up, you will have opportunities to take your talents, your abilities, your position, your education that you received here, and the education that you've done after that. And it's extremely important on how you're going to act after you take care of yourself and your family. The extra resources that you get, how are you going to expend that? And what I'm here to say is that there are opportunities out there, there are needs out there, with regard to the lame. In fact, I have some friends of mine here from India. We partnered with them and their Rotary organization to take care of some of the lame in India. we are doing something for working with orphanages. In fact, I was with my friend Shiran Fernando here yesterday. He's a Thomian who did the hurdles with me, a fantastic rugby player, and he told me that one of the things that he is doing in Ratmalana is, they're running an orphanage. So it's not only something that I do, right? So this is not about me, but it is important for me to kind of talk about that. So you get an understanding of not only what it is that you're going to do as you get older, what is it that you're going to be and the kind of work that you're going to do, but as a Thomian, what are other things that you're going to be responsible with? How about the widow? How about those who are in prison? How about the unemployed and those who are underemployed? What do I mean by somebody who is underemployed? Somebody who is underemployed is somebody who is capable because of their abilities and talents to work here. But because either a lack of self-confidence, because of some things that have happened in their life, they are here. And so, there is an opportunity to come alongside them and to be able to help people like that. How about the hungry? And how about the disenchanted? Here are some pictures of, feeding the hungry, being able to do the prosthesis legs right here, right? That's one of the mobile vans that goes out and fits people custom so that they can walk. And some pictures of the kids in India. Something that I learned not only in my home in Sri Lanka, but also at St. Thomas's, is that to whom much is given, much is also required. St. Thomas's is an incredible institution. I am sure that there are very few schools like this, forget about in Sri Lanka, I would say in the world. And so it's an absolute honor and a privilege for you to go to St. Thomas's. And so it's not only about what it is that you're going to achieve. I want you to keep in mind that there may be opportunities for you to step outside your comfort zone and be able to do for others. How about fellow Thomians? I happen to have the privilege, Gordon, of having two Thomians who are classmates of mine who decided that they were going to go into the ministry. And in fact, one of them who went to St. Thomas's Bandarawala, he's actually a year younger, they're all in full-time ministry. Is there a responsibility on me to be able to see how they are doing? Because they have given up a lot. It was not, sometimes, in fact, I was in church yesterday on Sunday, and the young man was talking about the fact that he didn't go into the ministry because that was the only thing that he could do. He had many, many options, and he decided to sacrifice himself and to go into the ministry. And very early on in life, something that my parents taught me was it's not only important to take care of the orphans, not only important to take care of the widow, but those who are in full-time ministry. It's something that I take very, very seriously. I feel like it's my responsibility to come alongside them and be able to be there for them, during the times that they need resources. Because God has not only given me this opportunity and this ability to go out and do this so that I can be introduced as president and CEO and, all that kind of stuff. It's much more than that. It's an opportunity to be able to do for others. I also want to call out Ajit Abhiratna, who's here. Ajit is a Trinitian, and he spent a lot of time during the tumultuous years of my life between 18 and 22. He was an awesome mentor to me. He was a life cell leader, and I used to go every Tuesday because I knew that my life needed it. So Ajit, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. And also Pastor Dishan, you've been an incredible inspiration for me as well. Thank you. So I just wanted to leave that thought with you. Guys, you have been a fantastic audience, but I'm not done. I want you guys to give me about 10 more minutes. I want to go back to the theme of this week. right? Yes, it's the cycle parade. Yes, it's the running on the field. Yes, it's the papare band. Yes, it's the flags. But this week is about cricket. And so I just want to take a few moments to think in terms of, are there some lessons that we can actually learn from cricket? How about taking your guard? I remember when I was playing on matting wickets, the first thing a batsman does when he goes on the field to bat is he's looking for the chalk, right? Why? Because he wants to take his guard. If you're playing on turf, you get out there and you're doing making sure that the run-up on the other side is taken care of, right? You're taking care of, the plates where the ball's going to pitch. And the next thing you do, I'm a left-hander, so you come in and take your guard. Why do you do that? Because you're aligning yourself, right? The wickets don't move. The wickets stay exactly where they are. And who are you asking about your middle stump or your middle and leg? You're talking to the umpire. And the umpire starts to show you exactly how to align yourself for you to be able to start your inning. Part of the reason I wasn't as successful at St. Thomas's was because I did not take my guard. I didn't line up, whether it was God's word, whether it was the rules of the institution, whether it's what the teachers wanted me to do, what the coaches wanted me to do. I was not aligned correctly. Not understanding the rules of the game, I got extremely careless. So the one thing I want to leave with you, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is extremely important. Whether it is at St. Thomas's, when you go on to your next phase in life, to be able to take guard. For those of us who are Christians, in Psalms it says, Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Right? There are absolutes in God's word that tells us exactly how to live, what to do, what not to do. And so I would challenge you today that, yes, we can learn this aspect of taking your guard and aligning yourself, whether it is God's word, whether it is rules at home, whether it is rules in school, whether it is rules in the organization that you're going to work for, that we can do that to be more successful. Secondly, watching the bowler's arm in the slips. I was probably 10 years old when I played my first cricket match for St. Thomas's Prep. The captain, a neat little factoid, was Johan Pires. Johan actually captained the Centenary Royal Thomaian for Mount. His first match as captain at prep school was also my first match. I was 10 years old. They hit me at first slip. I was scared, spitless. It was my first game. It was at Prince of Wales, Morato. I dropped 3 catches. Ball came fast and furious. Unfortunate, didn't know what to do. My father was colonel at 3GW in Mathura, and he called me that evening, like he always did, and said, "Son, how did you do?" I said, "Appa, I missed 3 catches." And what he said to me was, "Son, you got to watch the bowler's arm." I was with Stefan Anthony's yesterday. Stefan Anthony's used to field in the gully. At gully, you don't have the opportunity to look at the bowler's arm. But there are times in life that you have the ability to be able to start to see things a little ahead. And sometimes that is all you need in order to be able to respond. I'm sure many of you in this hall are either all driving already or in the process of going to be driving soon. One of the things that I teach my 3 teenage boys is, when you're to be a successful driver, not only should you be looking in the car in front of you, but you should be looking at 2-3 cars ahead. Why? Because it'll give you some time to react and respond. And so it is in life. there will be opportunities for you start to see things a little earlier. And by being able to do that, you are going to become more successful. They talk about baseball being a game of inches. And so in life too, right, it's sometimes just that split second. Right? And so it's important for you to train yourself to look for opportunities to see whether you can start to see some things a little ahead so that you can respond to it. I'm here to tell you that I started to take more catches. I didn't take all of them, but guess what? I improved my chances. So watching the bowler's arm, an important aspect. So I wanted to tell you, I didn't catch every catch in the slips, but I started to improve my strike rate with it. So it says, there's a word in Psalm that says, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. And it's an important thing. We need to figure out, where our eyes are, where is our focus, where are we getting our strength, how are we learning that. Number 3, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the googly. 2 years ago, I was actually in the airline lounge getting ready to go to see the last 4 games of the World Cup. And I saw Tahir from South Africa bowling to Mahela Jayawardena. Mahela is a fantastic bat, but I saw this one over. He didn't have a clue what Tahir was doing to him. And I just knew that it was before long that Tahir was going to get him. Not the next over, but the over after next match over. He right-hander, ball came through, bowled a googly, clean bowled. What am I saying? By watching the bowler's arm, right, the difference between a leg break, I think Ranil Pires used to bowl something called a top spin, and also a googly. And I think, since Murali, now we have also the variation of the Dusra, and I'm sure there'll be other variations. Right, in life, it's extremely important to have discernment. Discernment regarding friends, discernment regarding situations, discernment regarding circumstances, discernment even regarding opportunities. Sometimes opportunities are knocking right there, or there is somebody, your father or your mother or your teacher telling you, hey, if you do this, there is some opportunity. It's extremely important to start to understand what that looks like. And again, extreme subtlety, right? These are some things also that we can learn. And you're going to learn through failure. One of the things that I find is sometimes parents do a big disservice with their children because they don't give them room to fail. The way that you learn to play that ball correctly is by missing it a few times. By getting, playing for the leg break and getting caught out here. Or being able to hit that 6. My father used to tell me I was a left-hand bat. He said if a leg break bowler bowls you on the middle stump, it should be nothing short of a 6. Because the ball's leaving the bat. All you have to do is, boom, gone. So, something I want to leave with you. One of my favorite scriptures, James 1:5, it says, if any one of us lacks wisdom, it's for us to ask. Our responsibility is to ask. And God will give us that wisdom, especially when we pray specifically. One of the things that I learned to do is to pray specifically. And I learned to do that at St. Thomas's, at the chapel, to learn specifically the things that I was looking for. Playing off the front foot, what does that do with life? There are many times in life that you have to actually be aggressive. Take the initiative. Be able to get out there and not wait for the ball to break, not wait to see how the ball is going to respond. You have to get out there and to be extremely aggressive and to take the initiative. Sometimes it's okay for you to actually wait for stuff to come to you. But as Thomians, one of the things that we need to learn to do, and I'm sure you already do it, but I would encourage you to do that even more. Because the more you do these things, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the more confident that you will be. So it's important. This is another lesson that we can learn from cricket, and that is sometimes you have to really go after the situation. and be able to take control. There's a story in the Bible regarding Gideon. Gideon was taking an army to fight the enemy. And God told him, look here, you have too many people. He says, you need to cut the amount of people that you're taking to battle. And not only did he tell him that, God told Gideon exactly how to do that. He told Gideon, the soldiers who are drinking, looking at the water, he says, leave them home. But the ones who are drinking the water and are looking at the horizon to see whether the enemy is coming, he says, those are the ones that you want to take with you. Right? So, in life, it's about taking initiative. It's about being prepared. I tell this to my older son all the time. The fact that he is my older son doesn't make him, yes, he is the older son because of the place he was born, but he has to do more. Especially when I'm gone, he needs to be able to know exactly what he needs to do. He needs to take initiative while I'm gone. And so every one of you has that opportunity. I don't know whether it's at home, whether it is in school, whether it is on the sports field, right? There is going to be some opportunities, and you have to be able to be ready. And my advice to you is to play off the front foot. One more. The first 10 runs in singles, which is what I called this little talk that I gave you. I heard my classmates found out about it and said, what the heck is that all about? Well, I'm going to tell you. The first 10 runs in singles is something that my father used to tell me when I was a young cricketer. He said to me, when you go in there to bat, make sure in your head that you're thinking the first 10 runs in singles. Why did he say that? Because what he was telling me was, you need to go there and start to get familiar with the situation that you're in. Understand the light. Understand where the fielders are fielding. Understand the tendencies, right? And by doing that and settling down, not to try to hit the first ball for 6, I realize that with the way the game is played today, there is more how things are played. But there is not a short version to how to live life. Right? Life is lived in being able to get familiar with the situation. And one of the reasons I brought up that 100th partnership was because of that. I didn't go back and look at Halang and CP's strike rate, but I'm sure that they practiced some of this because they realized they needed to get in there and not play 1 over, not 2 overs. They had to almost play 3/4 of that day. And so they realized that they needed to get their eye in. So the other thing is you start to get your eye in. You start to understand the pace. And in life, you're extremely young right now, but as you get older, there will be situations and circumstances that you and maybe your parents did not necessarily plan for. And you have to get up there on that pitch. And so when you do, I don't want you to forget this little thing that I'm talking about today. That the best way for you to build a firm foundation, for the innings of your life, is to go there and to be able to take it 1 ball at a time. I had the opportunity about 3 months ago to be in Trinidad for half a day. I was coming back from Guyana, having watched some cricket, and I had the opportunity to go to my hero's house. When I was growing up, I hero worshipped Bernard Julian. Halang, you'll remember, he was a left-arm bowler like you, and he batted right hand. He was my unbelievable hero. I got to go visit him at his house, and I talked to him about what my father said to me. And he said, that's a wonderful principle, he said. He says, because if you do that 10 times, you have a century. But sometimes, even to get a century, you have to start off by getting your first 10 runs. And so that is what I wanted to be able to leave with you. Philippians 4:13 says, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. So When we ask God, He will give us strength, but it's our responsibility to be able to go in there and be able to get ready for that inning that we need to play. You guys have been very good. I created a coin. On one side, it has the St. Thomas's emblem, and the other side, it has a batsman, looking at the ball. Not trying to hit that ball for a 6, but he's got his eye right on the ball. And because most of you in life are right-handers, I made sure that the batsman is a right-hander, even though I myself am a left-hander. I have one of these for every one of you to remind you of what it is that we talked about today. And I'm also going to make sure that I put this talk on YouTube, because what I said to you today, if you were like me, 95% of this was like, what's this guy talking about? I don't think I need this for what I'm doing today, what I'm doing this week. But there will come a time where as things, as you go out to live life, as challenges come up, you might need this. And so I'm giving this thing to you as my challenge to you as a young Thomian, that you don't forget about the things that we talked about. And one of the things that I have learned at being 54, Warden talked about some of my qualifications, is I am a lifelong learner. For somebody who cut school, spent a lot of time out of school rather than in school, I have committed myself to be a lifelong learner. And to learn, you don't necessarily have to go to university. Yes, in early years, I think that's extremely important to do, to follow higher education. But at my age, sometimes I have to learn by having a mentor or somebody else that's out there. And I found that every 3 to 4 years, I have had to reinvent myself in order to be successful. Every 3 to 4 years. As I look back, it seems like every 4 years. As I look forward, it might be even quicker. And so my challenge to you is to not to stop learning, to continue to have an open mind, to continue to be able to learn so that you can grow and be successful. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be able to do this in front of you today. Hopefully I've been a blessing to you. I know that you've been a blessing to me. I would like to open up the forum for questions right now. And I think the way we're going to do it is there's going to be a prefect who's going to have a mic, and he's going to come to you, put your hand up, and we'll get into some questions. Is that okay, Warden, to do? All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had a slight issue. Now, your company, they make parts for weapons, right, included? So won't that increase the percentage of those who are orphan, widowed, hungry?
That's a fantastic question. So the weapons, that is an incredible question. Only would have come from a student at St. Thomas's. But all of the stuff that we do are, first of all, for defensive purposes, not for offensive purposes. That's number one. Number two, we don't make anything that is either fire, we don't make any armaments, we don't make any of those kinds of things. So we are making parts for the vehicle, we are making transportation systems for maintenance. None of our stuff has to do with offensive systems that is used to kill people. It's more a defensive process. And like a good cricket team and a good rugby team, right, you must have a good defense as well to win. I mean, part of what makes Sri Lanka a country where people can come back and have tourists, is because we had to do some things offensively in order to get the country back, right? And unfortunately, where there are human beings, and because of our sin nature, there will be war. And you have to go out there, and you don't want to start something, but when somebody else starts it for you, you need to be able to learn to finish, right? So I bring up my kids that way. I bring up my boys that way. I tell them, don't start a fight. But if somebody starts it, you jolly well better learn how to finish it, right? So, good question, but, I'm not God and I don't control those things, you know what I mean? So I look at those things compartmentalized. Fantastic question. All of the stuff that we do are extremely defensive, and there are widows and orphans that are not only a result of war, they're a result of the sin of people, right? And so to take care of them is, I feel like part of my responsibility. Did I answer you? Next.
Yeah. You said you work for the U.S. military, right?
Yep.
So what have you done for your country as such? Because U.S. military makes wars. It's somewhat similar to what he said. But the wars are not really help people, whereas we have war here for 30 years, and actually it was meant to be the end of wars ever in this country. So have you helped our country in our war as such, or any other charity as such?
So, I'm trying to understand that question. So the one thing that I did do was I had nothing to do with the war that went on for the last 30 years in Sri Lanka. My way of handling that was to actually leave Sri Lanka for the US. And I think you're asking some of the same questions, right, with regard to is war necessary, right? And I don't know. I am not a moral authority here. What I can tell you is that I have to be a good steward in what God has given me, and I find needs. As long as they meet my moral compass, I go out and do those things that I need to do, right? War is something that, about a month ago, this might be the best way for me to explain this. About a month ago, I was in Kenya on a safari, and I was I think it's called the Masai Mara for 3 days, looking at animals. You know how the lions survive? They hunt antelope, deer, buffalo, because if the lion doesn't eat, he or she ceases to exist, right? So the truth of the matter is, in the world that we live in some cases, right, and I'm not talking about human beings here, there are things that have to die and others have to live. The way I feel about this situation is when you have a strong military, it actually deters people from going to war. I think part of what is happening right now is because there is weakness in the military, there are bad actors that are continuing to be bad actors. So, it's interesting, as I go around the world, I get a lot of questions around this, and it is the world we live in. And again, I'm not a moral authority, and I am responsible to do what it is in front of me to do. Anything else?
So, this is like a quick question. Has your faith ever affected your career choices? Your faith in God?
Yes. Not only, so I will talk to you about not only my faith, but my failures. So this walk here was not all, in one straight line. There was many failures along the way. Some that were caused by others that affected me, and there were some things that I did that were stupid as well. And so my faith, I had to go back to my faith to say, guess what? I screwed up, I messed up, but it's not the end of the world, right? I have to learn from that, So what I will tell you is, I was in a class recently about 2 Tuesdays ago, and John Maxwell talks about the fact that, experience is not the best teacher. A lot of people say experience is the best teacher. What is the best teacher is evaluated experience, meaning that you have to go back and look at that experience and say, what are some things that I can actually learn from it, right? And so, yes, God's Word, people who are my pastors, people who hold me accountable, they are absolute part of who I am. Especially because I work for myself, it's extremely important for me to surround myself with people who are going to hold me accountable. And so the quick answer is yes, my faith has a lot to do with not only my success, but also on how to deal with failure. right? Especially when you have 3 sons, right? You can imagine the amount of stuff that they get into. So I really need God's grace and His Word to be able to be a father, leave alone be a president and a CEO. Good question. Anybody else? Am I going to get one from up there, or you guys? Yes, go ahead. I can tell that I'm in a Christian school, but in a Buddhist country. You keep asking me about whether war is okay. My answer to that question is, as long as there are people, there will be wars. And it's just part of, Jesus said the poor will always be with you. So it's one of the things, I serve on the food bank. I've been on the board of the food bank for 3 years. We serve about 200,000 families a year, feed them. But on the other hand, right, the poor will always be around. Right? It's just part of the human system that we live in. Right? So I can say, listen, Bible says the poor are always going to be with you, so I'm just going to let them take care of themselves. But I feel like as a steward, I have a responsibility to do. The same thing is true with regard to war. I don't know another way to answer that. I work on systems, and I thought when I said this about weapon systems that it could be misconstrued. So I'm going to learn from that. I should have called it something else. I should have said defensive weapon systems that are there. Like, for instance, the Aegis weapon system is a good example. My first couple of parts that I made are on the Aegis weapon system. The Aegis weapon system is there to actually protect an aircraft carrier on the seas, to make sure that nobody is going to attack that thing. So I'm very proud of the fact that I have a couple of components on the Aegis weapon system. And I make good quality parts, and I save the taxpayer a lot of money doing that. Good question, though. Here you go, buddy. That's for you. Yeah, go ahead. The question is, would I plan to help the forces in Sri Lanka? I think so. I would have to evaluate every opportunity, but if there is an opportunity to be able to do that in the right way, yes. How much time do we have? Done? Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
I need to perform an important task, and that is to thank Prakash for his time with us this afternoon. And also thank him for provoking your thinking, because I suspect from those questions that your thinking has been provoked and poked this afternoon. I also want to thank him for having brought these tokens which will remind you of his talk and perhaps challenge you when you see it to think about some of the things that he has shared with you. Finally, I want us to all thank him for the gift that he is going to give the school. We will be the first school in Sri Lanka to have a 3D printer when he provides it to us at some point this year. So let's give him a round of applause and thank him. Before we go, I would like to ask you to stand as we say a prayer and give thanks to God for Prakash and for his work, and ask God to be with him. Let's pray in quiet. Gracious Father, we give you thanks and praise for this time that you gave us this afternoon. We thank you for your son Prakash and for all that he has achieved in you, for all the blessings that you granted unto him. We pray, O God, that you would continue to be with him, that you would continue to use him in the ways that you have been doing to challenge others. We ask your blessing on his family and all those who he works with. We ask for your blessing to be with him as he continues his journey. In the precious and mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Okay, prefects, please escort them out in an orderly manner.
The ending was abrupt.
based on the questions that were asked by the students and the enthusiasm with which they asked those questions, I can tell you that I'm sure that I was able to pique their interest, not only about stewardship but also about cricket. And I'm just hoping that I would be able to continue this relationship that we have created, and that it would be a continued partnership in being able to enable fellow Thomians. God bless.